Akhetaten's Gates, Chapter 19. Several hours had passed since that embarrassing ordeal at the opening of the mouth ceremony. Things had calmed down to some extent. Akhetaten had eventually put herself to sleep and was being tended to by nursemaids. As for myself, I was in my own private chambers, curled in my elaborate bed. I had not been able to stop crying since I had started. Outside, I suddenly heard T's voice. He was home, and he was just outside my doors. That was outrageous! I can understand that was a hard experience for you, but kings have been doing it for generations. It was hard on me, too. That man was my husband since I was 5 years old. How dare you undermine the possibility that someone could be hurting more than you? How dare you take it out on those poor courtiers? How dare you take it out on your pregnant wife? How dare you take it out on a child that understands nothing of this? How dare you insult me? You most certainly proved your power out there today. Congratulations. The people of Egypt can now see you as a man worth respect, reverence, and fear. But it is not the people of Egypt that you would return home to and bring into your bed. You are not sleeping with them. It got quiet for a few minutes after that. If any more talking was being done, it was being done quietly. But the next sound that I was able to hear was the door opening and shutting. I heard sandals padding along the floor. His hand reached out to touch my shoulder, my response to which I pulled away from him. Nefertiti, Akhetaten whispered. I could tell that my reaction had surprised him. Nefertiti, please. Go away! Get away from me! Please, he pleaded. No, I think you made yourself quite clear out there, I spat. He sat on the edge of the bed, lowering his hand. About today. I don't want to talk about it, Akhetaten, I shouted, covering my ears in a childish fashion. He suddenly turned, grabbed my wrist, and flung me to my back, pinning me down and straddling over me. I let out a terrified scream. I never realized the potential of his strength. Damn it, Nefertiti! We are going to talk about it! He paused, trying to calm himself. Nefertiti, listen. Slowly, he released me and scooted off me, wiping the tears from my face. I am so truly sorry about my behavior today. I suppose I was just too overwhelmed. It's not just the ceremony. My father was in that sarcophagus. This is the real thing. This is it. I am Pharaoh Akhetaten. I am King of Egypt. There is nobody to fall back on. I took out my fears and frustrations on everyone else. I shot up and slapped him across the face, making him fall backwards, off the bed in surprise, and perhaps a little pain. Damn it, Akhetaten! You made me look like an ass! You humiliated me before your kingdom. And not only me, but your mother, too. Akhetaten and 7 courtiers that had to escort us home. Your own mother was unable to watch her husband be lowered into his tomb. He knelt by the bed, placing his hands on the furniture as if it was an altar, and he was worshiping me. I know. Believe me, I know. And I am sorry. Please forgive me. The feeling inside, it felt awful when you left. It was as if a whole part of me was gone. Aten was very displeased with me. Had I not been the most integral part of the ceremony, I would have dropped everything to follow after you, giving up my dignity for you. I would have thrown myself to the ground like a commoner to grovel before you, like I grovel now, and I shall continue to grovel until both you and Aten are appeased. I crumbled to the bed, sobbing hard. He came up to embrace me. Please, forgive me, Nefertiti. I hid my face in his chest, unable to really feel comfortable saying anything. Where is Akhetaten? I owe her an apology as well. I failed her as a parent, unable to prepare her for this. She's sleeping. He nodded and stroked the back of my neck. I think you need a nap, too. I began to melt into him, finding his warm embrace so alluring. A part of me wanted to stay angry, but another part of me couldn't help but want him there. He'd been my companion for years, and I couldn't go on without him right now. I found myself listening to his heart as it beat in its regular rhythm. My eyes were sore and puffy from the tears. I closed them in hopes of dulling the pain. Yet again, Akhetaten seemed to have supernaturally wise moments where he seemed to know what I was thinking, what I needed, knowing me better than I did sometimes. And in moments, I fell asleep in his arms. I was returning from a refreshing bath. It felt so nice to be shaven and clean. My hair felt like it could breathe once more. I hummed a happy little tune as I made my way to the king's chamber that was now Akhenaten's new chamber. I gasped when I stepped in. Several servants were inside. 2 were dressing him, and the rest were frantically running back and forth to pack for him. "What's going on?" I asked. "Where are you going?" "I'm going on a little trip," Akhetaten smiled. "Are you going to the other palace in Luxor?" "Without me? Those harem girls will eat you alive." "They will not lay their eyes or hands on me," he replied confidently. "There will be no palace on this journey. Do not fret. For now, my heart shall remain here with you in Memphis." "I'll be lonely if you leave me," I pouted. He leaned over to kiss me gently. "I am always with you. I am with you in spirit. But my physical body must leave you for a little while. It is very important. I swear it by Aten." "My pharaoh," Tepi boldly chimed in, examining a small decorative box. "Who will sit on the throne in your absence? It is rather early and premature in your reign to leave it unattended." "Fear not, Tepi. Egypt is in the most capable hands of the only person I would allow as my equal. Queen T? I don't allow my mother to do anything. She simply is. She is more powerful than I am. But my Queen Nefertiti, she is my equal. She is my co-regent." Tepi seemed surprised, but only for a moment, before giving in with a very genuine smile. "Of course." "I'm going to miss you," I said as I embraced him. "And I you," he assured. "I'll think of you and Meridaten every day." He suddenly became distracted as Meridaten pushed one of his dressers away and began to tug at his kilt. "Child, how do you always show up out of nowhere whenever your name is mentioned?" "Daddy, I want to go too." He chuckled and rubbed her head. "Not this time, precious. But maybe next time." She gave a disappointed groan. "Aw, then you have to bring me a present, okay?" "A present?" he chuckled. "Well, I'll see what I can do. I'll bring you a rock." "A rock? That's no fun." "Well, maybe I'll be able to find something better." He then peered up at me. "I trust you, Nefertiti." "I make sure that you don't regret that trust," I assured him. "I promise." The next few weeks were a fury of worry. I spent many hard days and sleepless nights worrying about him. T assisted me heavily with the daily duties of court. I was getting a serious crash course on what it meant to be queen and the second hand of Egypt. It was important, now that Akhenaten had learned to be king, I had to learn to be queen. T would not live forever to do these things for me. I would have to take her place beside him on these thrones for political matters. This together time really helped me to keep our minds off our worries, and of course she worried too. Akhenaten had never been away from the palace alone for an extended amount of time. We found other occupations in haste, not wishing to think too much about it. Meridaten, after all, still needed a lot of attention, and I had a life inside me to worry about. Then there was the court. Believe it or not, the hardest matter was not the court, but dealing with Meridaten. She was rather crafty and a clever prankster. She was capable of quickly grasping an opportunity to manipulate others. Perhaps we had spoiled her too much. As always, she demanded her way or no way. A very T thing to do. She remained the angel around her grandmother and myself, and even around Teppy. But to others, she was the terror of the palace, being rude and crude. See? Manipulation. But then again, Teppy, and myself had an advantage. She knew it was only a matter of time before her father returned from wherever he was, and he would be very happy to put her back into her place if she was too unruly. In her favor as well was the pity the courtiers felt for her, despite the torture they had to endure. They simply attributed it to the fact that she was a daddy's girl and missed her father immensely, so acted out in this manner. One thing was for sure, we all missed him and wanted him home. The day finally came. It was several days later. It had been a very difficult morning, full of dictations and political matters. But it came in one overwhelming wave. By the mid-afternoon, the court had finally settled, allowing me to call it an early day and give myself some time to rest. With no more matters to handle in the throne room, T decided to bide her time by going on a sort of patrol. Every servant dreaded this behavior. She had done it many times over the years, when her husband was enthroned, and now for her enthroned son. And she took a great amount of time to find areas for improvement. My pity went to those servants. She would not be appeased. As for myself, I was a frequent napper. I was allowed. I was a pregnant queen. But in truth, my naps were not so much for being tired. The place I napped was in the king's chamber. The pillows and linen still retained the scent of my husband. I would not allow the linens to be changed until his return. I wanted to take the scent in. Akhetaten. Where was he? What was he doing? I dreamt of his return. When would he come home? I was pulled from my doze by quite a commotion. What was happening? Some sort of riot? It sounded like it was coming from outside? I flung myself out of the bed and dashed to the window, peering out to see the gates being swarmed with people and steadily growing. Could it be? Could it? Yes, I saw him. He was driving his chariot proudly down the road, with a small procession following him. These were the people he had taken with him, and now they were returning. Oh, I couldn't greet them looking like this. Not after all this time apart. This wouldn't do. I screamed for the servants, demanding all too eagerly for them to help me into more appropriate clothing to greet Pharaoh. Only the most extravagant would be suitable. Once he came to a stop, people of all sorts crowded about him, encouraging him to speak of his mysterious adventure. He seemed rather pleased with all this attention being lavished upon him by the public. Akhetaten didn't even bother to wait for me. She ran ahead, pushing through people left and right, and when she was trapped, she simply crawled through their legs. She rushed to the chariot, hopping in and pulling on her father's robes. "Daddy!" "Oh, look at you," he sighed, bending down to hug her tight. "How is my little princess?" "Daddy," she said firmly and seriously, "where's my present?" Akhetaten blinked in surprise. "What a sharp memory you have." He stepped off the chariot, picked Akhetaten up, and progressed through the group and into the palace. "So where is it?" she asked. "How about a story instead?" he suggested. "Where's your mother?" "It better be a good one," she remarked. I ended up tripping over the hem of my dress as I tried to run to him. I expected wild laughter, but to my surprise none came. Perhaps they were afraid I would have fallen and endangered my pregnancy. But everything turned out all right. What a relief. Akhetaten shifted Akhetaten to his left hip and held out his right arm invitingly. What wife would need any further coaxing? I ran to him like an eager child. "What did you see? Where did you go?" He laughed at my enthusiasm. I was as bad as our daughter. He looked at her with a kind smile. "Were you a good girl while I was away?" "Of course, Daddy. Why wouldn't I be?" Some of the servants and courtiers began to cough and mumble, causing me to cover my face to hide my laughter. The spawn of her grandmother, she cast them a venomous glare. What was frightening was that even at this age, she would follow up on them later if they did not cooperate. So all at once rang a chorus of praise. Wonderful! Couldn't have been better. Extremely well behaved. She gave an "I told you so" nod and smirked with great satisfaction. See? I was perfectly well behaved, Daddy. Akhenaten smiled and turned to Tepi. Has the Hebsed temple been completed? Yes, my pharaoh. We are on schedule. Has I been summoned? He is already on his way, my pharaoh. I asked. As in, my father, I? Excellent! Akhenaten cheered, ignoring my question. Call the festival for tomorrow morning. I have wonderful news that I cannot wait to announce. As you wish, my pharaoh, Tepi replied, bowing. Stop being so formal, Akhenaten sighed. You may be a loyal servant of this house, but you are still a loyal family friend. You can call me by name. He then kissed Meroddaten on the head and set her down. He wrapped his arms about me and began to whisper in my ear, making me giddy like a child. He was whispering how much he missed me, sneaking in words of perversion to make me blush. Meanwhile, the courtiers began to whisper amongst themselves, starting to crowd around a small group of people that had followed Akhenaten in. Among them, a young scribe and another man I was not familiar with. The few that had traveled with my husband seemed less anxious than the people about them, but had a certain regal air about them. They knew the big thing Akhenaten wanted to say, and were eager to let it out in the open the following morning.